That one should be going too. So I'll just state for the record then that my name is Michelle Marino, and I'm here interviewing Anthony Miles Sr. Is that right?
Yeah.
Senior? Yeah, and you go by Tony?
Yeah.
Tony, okay. And today is Friday, November 9th, 2018, and we are at his house located outside of Bogstown, Indiana. So I'll start by asking just when and where were you born?
I was born in 1508 Pleasant Street in Fountain Square area in Annapolis, in the house. It was my grandmother's house.
Wow. And when was that?
June 20th, 1932.
Wow, okay. And what were your parents' names?
My father was Harry Lawrence Miles, and my mother's name was Mary Abigail Miles.
Okay. What was her maiden name?
Sedam, S-E-D-A-M.
Okay. And were they from Indianapolis, or where were they from?
My father was born in, what's the county out there? Newmarket, Crawfordsville, Montgomery County.
Yeah, gotcha.
And he was born there in Newmarket, the town of Newmarket. And my mother was born in Annapolis.
Okay.
And they were both at home, but they didn't go to hospital. So.
Yeah. Now, did your family have long-time roots in Indiana, or did they come from elsewhere?
Well, a long time. They were Crawford or Montgomery County. I go back quite a ways on that. We're not sure about my mom's side, but they were in Indiana for a long time. Down around just south of Brooklyn, Indiana, around in that area down there.
Yeah. Okay. What were your parents' occupations?
My father was a bus driver in Indianapolis Transit.
Okay.
Or a streetcar or whatever. And my mother had worked as a waitress downtown at an Italian restaurant on North Illinois Street. A friend of hers, family owned the restaurant.
Okay.
They're the first block of North Illinois. And I guess that's how they met, because my dad was driving a bus.
Oh. Okay. Did you have siblings?
One sister.
Okay. And were you older or younger?
I'm the older. She's 2 years younger than I am.
2 years younger. Okay. How would you describe your childhood?
Well, happy. We lived. I don't remember, but I lived in they had rented a house on Hamilton Avenue, which is just right off of 10th Street.
Okay.
And then they had an apartment up over the drugstore at 10th and Sterling. And then my grandfather had a shoe repair shop on East 10th Street, just down a block from that, across from West Drive Woodard Place, and he had a shoe repair shop. Well, then my mother and dad moved into a house just behind that on Windsor, which is a street just north of West Drive Woodard Place. And we lived there until my dad left when I was 12. And my mother and I and sister went to the Hamilton Theater or something. She took us to the movies. And so we came back from the theater, and there was a note on the refrigerator with a $5 bill. He went to California.
Wow.
Son of the woman.
So never saw him again, or?
Oh, I saw him later. He had little regrets about, I think, leaving, but nothing serious.
Yeah.
He dumped my mother, is what he did.
Yeah.
And so these people think they're poor. They haven't seen poor. They couldn't pay the rent on the house we had. They could have bought it for $3,200. It was a nice house.
Yeah.
She couldn't afford the rent, so we had to move over on the next street, which is Newman. It was a rental house over there, which had apartments, and we had a 2-room apartment upstairs.
Wow.
Three of us lived.
Did she continue waitressing, or did she have to find a different job?
She hadn't worked after I was born.
Okay.
She hadn't had a job. She found one working at a printing company for 45 cents an hour.
Working where?
At a printing company down.
Mm-hmm.
It was on South Meridian. It's not there anymore.
Yeah.
But,
wow. That must have been hard.
Well, it was for her, but I didn't know he was poor.
Yeah. So
we shared the bath with 2 or 3 other families.
Wow.
In this apartment.
Wow. So she did a good job of sort of trying to keep normalcy for you guys?
Well, yeah, she did. Yeah.
And now, did you still have grandparents that lived nearby? Or?
They were dead.
They were dead at that point.
They were all gone. So my mother went through a lot.
Sounds like it. Wow.
And I was a paper boy at 12, 13. I had a paper out, and I cut grass. When I wasn't playing ball, I was working in a drugstore or something like that, making money.
So did you feel like you had to help contribute to the family?
Well, I was the only male.
Yeah, yeah.
But we had a good neighborhood back then, and even in that squalid house we lived, it wasn't that bad, but it had heat and all that. There was a lot of people living there, but part of the neighbors were decent people. They just didn't have any money.
Yeah. So they really helped out.
In fact, one of them is a retired preacher on the west side. He and I were Navy together and played ball together.
Yeah. So who would you say are the most influential people in your life growing up?
My mother.
Yeah.
And just some of the neighbor men.
Yeah.
Across the street was an Italian family, and they were. I played ball with their son, and their dad. We played cards together with their dad, and people on the street.
Yeah.
Things were different then. You could walk to wherever you went.
Yeah. And when you say ball, do you mean basketball or baseball?
Well, I played all of them, but on the varsity team, that was football and track
Okay.
and baseball.
What was your position in football?
But fullback.
Fullback. Okay.
I still have my helmet
Wow.
from Tech. You
Yeah.
want to see it?
Yeah. Maybe. Well, we'll continue on. You can show me here in a little bit.
It's leather, white leather.
Yeah, that's neat. That's a neat thing to have.
But I was a fullback. I wasn't the best, but I was filled good. We played you played offense and defense, both then.
Wow.
We had a T formation. Well, I was a decent fullback. And my youngest son, who's a physician, was a fullback at Howell.
Okay.
And he got a fullback scholarship to Indiana Central.
Oh, wow.
My grandson, Anthony Jr.'s son, was a fullback at Cecina.
Oh.
And made All-State.
Wow.
So it kind of runs in the family.
Yeah, I'd say
But
so.
we're not big.
Yeah, but you need different sizes too.
Huh?
You need different sizes.
Well,
position.
speed and correct movement
Agility.
makes a difference.
Yeah.
Brian, the doctor, he and I are the same size. They're like the kill down at Indiana Central
Yeah.
University. And he wanted to go to medical school. So he was living on campus playing football. The first or second year I said, give it up.
Yeah.
Because he was outweighed 100 pounds anyway on most of the team.
Yeah.
But he was tough.
Yeah.
But I said, give it up and so you can go to medical school.
Yeah.
That's another story itself.
Yeah.
I had to fight him in there too. But,
Goodness. Well, what understanding, if any, did you have as a child about politics or your family's politics?
none. Except I read a lot. My mother taught me to read at an early age, and then my sister. And there was a library about 3 blocks from our house, Spades Park Library, which is over on Commerce and around in there. And I'd walk down there all the time. I'd get books out and I'd read a lot. And I saw things happening around here and there. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just did.
Yeah. So, when you keep mentioning your sister as well, what was her name?
Shirley.
Shirley. Okay.
She's a widow. She lives over in near Stockport.
Okay.
Stockport.
Yeah. So I know you graduated from Tech, right? What schools did you attend as a child?
33. School 33 was on Sterling Street at 12th, which is now, I think, an old folks' home or something. I don't know what the hell I did.
Yeah.
We went to, I was a traffic boy there and raised the flag every morning. And we walked to school, walked back. Nobody fed our lunch. My mother gave us money to buy milk and graham crackers. I think we were a nickel then. And as she made a little bit more money, then she'd leave us lunch money.
Yeah.
And we'd go to a restaurant or something to eat.
Yeah.
Or else come home and eat.
Okay. So it sounds like you were, interested in reading and things like that. Did you have a favorite subject growing up, or, interest?
History.
History. Mm-hmm.
Those who will not learn from history are doomed by it.
Yes, wise words. And obviously you were interested in sports at a young age. So did you play through the school, or did you just play in the neighborhood?
Both.
Both?
Yeah, that was another thing I got police. Brookside Park had the police athletic league was there.
Okay.
And back in those days, the Fraternal Order of Police ran those, and the city paid the policeman salary that ran the park. So there was a policeman in each of the city parks, or maybe two. And they provided the athletic stuff, and then the Fraternal Order of Police, which I've been a member of ever since I joined the department, provided the equipment and raised the money. We even had a camp one time down in Martinsville, so the inner city lunch. Now they feed on lunch every day. We don't do it anymore. But I got I was the coach for the little kids at Brookside Palco football team.
Oh, okay.
And the policeman there I ended up being with him on the department.
So you were aware of the police presence through the sports leagues?
Oh yeah. My mother taught you don't run from the police, and if you need help, you ask them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. I know you also were involved in music. How did you get involved in music?
Well, I just love jazz, old jazz, and big band.
Uh-huh.
And I was in a band at Tech, or I took band,
Yeah.
I was playing French horn. But anyway, the best man at my wedding and I were in band together. He played the baritone horn. I was playing. Well, we got thrown out of band for jazzing up there. but we made the class. But we had to go to the principal's office and all that. But
maybe worth it.
I always loved Dixieland song, more song, and as a kid, and I didn't think it didn't sound right if it wasn't a banjo rhythm. So I decided to learn. I played drums when I was 6 years old in a church orchestra, and so I said, "Oh, I'm going to get in." So I started playing drums out a little bit. And I decided I'm going to learn banjo, and so I could play Dixieland banjo, and I did.
That's fun.
And I was just learning banjo when I was a drummer. And it was a ladies, it was 1972. One of the guys who worked with me on the department's aunt played banjo. And I said, well, I'd like to talk to her. Well, so I got together with her, and she had a band. There was 4 women. They wanted me to join their band. And I did. And I played with her for 2 years. For every time I was off, some weekend we played.
Yeah.
And they're all dead now. Well, they said, no, the keyboard player's still alive. She was Miss Indianapolis at Butler when she was 19.
Wow.
She's 70 now. She still looks like it. she's a hairdresser up in Carmel. But we played everywhere around the state.
Yeah. What was the name of the band?
Indy 5.
Indy 5.
And so that 2 years, and I was playing with other groups too. And the chief of police said, "You're going to the FBI Academy." Well, one day I'm training commander. My office was above in the city county building there, and Churchill was chief of police. Winston Churchill. He used to live out here. He wasn't supposed to, but he did. But anyway, he and I went on the department together. He went to Tech. He got out in '48. I didn't know him then, but he didn't. He was not athletic or anything. But we went on the department together. Well, he and I got along on the department. He trusted me, and so I'm training commander. It's what because we did our own academy. It was still. But he called. He said, "Come down to my office for a minute." And I said, "Okay, I got it." He said, "What are you doing next summer?" And I said, "Well, I don't know." He said, "I want you to go to the FBI Academy." And I said, "Well, let me call my wife." And I said, "What you want to do?" He said, "You're going to the FBI Academy." chief of police, and you're going, well, I think he was getting political pressure to send somebody that he didn't want to send, and he trusted me. Mm-hmm. So that was the last time we played on the riverboat down there on the Ohio River, this Bell Level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that week, I told the girls, I said, next month I have to go to Quantico, Virginia for 3 months. So I left. So we went over there. So, but then, 2 nights ago, I had dinner with the secretary of the musicians union. I met him when he just got out of Butler. And we were playing in a jazz band downtown together.
Wow.
And, so I've been playing for a long time.
Yeah.
I've played in every large city in the country.
Wow.
Except New York and Boston, and I don't like it over there anyway. But Los Angeles.
Yeah. Goodness.
Arizona, Colorado, Florida.
That's amazing. And so do you still play banjo, or do you play drums, or what do you play?
I sold my drums. I started carrying all that stuff around. I still play a little banjo. I played ukulele the other day for my tech high school bunch. They have luncheon once a year.
Yeah.
And I play ukulele or whatever. I don't go out anymore.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to clarify. So I know you went to tech, but I thought, did you graduate from tech or Howe?
Tech.
Tech. Did you go to Howe?
For about 3 weeks.
Okay.
One time I got suspended at Tech.
Okay.
I don't remember why.
Okay, but you graduated from Tech.
Yeah.
Okay, and jumping back a little bit, just thinking about the timeline, you said you were born in 32, right?
Uh-huh.
Did World War II affect your upbringing at all?
Well, sort of.
How
I
so?
remember that morning on the radio. Pearl Harbor's bomb, of course. I've learned a lot about that since then.
Yeah.
And knew people that were there. But in fact, it was shut down a lot of things. Mm-hmm. There wasn't much going on, and of course money was tight too. And well, we made it. I remember the war ended. I was selling newspapers on the corner on 10th Street, extra papers.
I bet that was a big deal.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then in '49, I went with the Navy. Mm-hmm. But before that, I learned a lot about. They were raising scrap money. I used to pull my wagon around and pick up stuff,
Yeah, stuff like that. Okay. As a child, growing up in Indianapolis, did you think about or have views about living in Indiana or being a Hoosier? Did that mean anything in particular to you?
Well, only what little history that I knew about Indiana at that time. Mm-hmm. I knew it was an important place. Mm-hmm. It was the crossroads of America.
That's right.
And all the railroads came in, and the highways followed the railroads, of course. Right. But yeah, what's it like the musicians union? Local number 3, Chicago, Cincinnati, and Indianapolis. This was an important city. Mm-hmm. There were more cars made here than there were in Detroit.
Wow.
Yeah. I know that because I ran the organization for the Hoosier Auto Show. Mm-hmm. But and we did the history. Mm-hmm. But it was an important place. Mm-hmm. And I knew this was Indian territory, for one thing. And I read a lot of Zane Grey books. Mm. You ever hear of him?
I'm trying to think of...
He wrote about the West.
Oh, yeah.
He was very, back then it was important to people. It's not now. But
yeah.
He was a very prolific author.
Interesting.
But, just Tecumseh and Sherman. Mm-hmm. It turns out that the chief of the terrorist Indians, of the Creeks, was from Indiana. And his dad was a Scot. His mother was a Creek. And he became the chief that fought Andrew Jackson down in Georgia.
Yeah.
But anyway, a lot went on here because of its location.
Yeah.
And I was proud of that.
Yeah. So you were at least thinking about and learning the history of the state.
Well, history was interesting to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Me too.
Okay, good.
So you graduated in high school then in
51.
51, okay.
I horsed around a lot.
Okay. Well, so were you in the Navy first?
After.
After. Okay. So describe your employment
I'm sorry, I'm 49, I joined the Navy with the reserve, and then the Korean War started. I lost track of my years there. When did I graduate?
Well, I probably have it
Fifth,
here.
I graduated fifth. When did I go in? I can't remember what year.
Here, I think I have. You graduated 51 from high school. Yeah, where did that paper go? Right there. So you joined the Navy before you graduated.
I think, yeah, I did, yeah.
Okay. Was
The
it
reserve.
the reserve?
That was an 8-year enlistment at that time.
Oh, wow.
And several of us from high school did it.
Okay.
In fact, my preacher friends. And so then the Korean War started. Well, when I joined the reserve, then it was an 8-year enlistment.
That's long.
Well, and so after 2 years, then you were still in the reserve for 6. Well, after 8 more years, if I say 12, and so I hung with it
Yeah.
for 26 years.
Wow.
And went a lot of places. But
So did you serve in Korea or?
no, I never got there, fortunately. I lost some friends there, and from high school and from the Navy. But my barber was on a destroyer off the coast. But he and I went to high school together. He's not my barber; he's dead now too. But I got to the Pacific. I was on a ship in the Pacific, but we didn't get that far over.
Okay.
And then I ended up after the 2-year time. I went in the Naval Armory, which they've turned that into a public school.
Wait, you were in where?
It's the Naval Armory.
Oh, the Armory.
Reserve. And so the Seabees were needing a storekeeper. I was supply guy.
Oh, okay.
And so I joined the Seabees. Naval construction, but as a supply guy, so we traveled a lot.
Okay, interesting. So then were you finishing school, doing the Navy or Naval Reserves? Were you working as well?
Yeah, I
or-
worked at the drugstore. I filled prescriptions at the drugstore at 19th and College.
Wow.
It was called Eustace Pharmacy. Fred, that was his name, and he was short on help. I'd come in there and work after school or on Saturdays, and we didn't want to go home for lunch, and I was in charge.
Wow. So,
That was the old days.
yeah,
Well,
yeah,
I
I'd say
could
so.
count. I could count pills.
Yeah,
I could read,
yeah.
and I worked at a drugstore. What else did I do? Probably just pick up jobs where we could get some.
So did you have a specific career path in mind, or how did you end up in the police force?
Well, I wanted to go in the FBI. I don't know why. At that time, I liked J. Edgar Hoover, and he was doing a lot of things, and it was important. And but you had to have either a law degree or an accounting degree to go.
Really?
Well, then at 19 or 20, I'm getting married. Well, no college. So I was a 34-year-old college freshman.
When you went back?
After, yeah, but yeah. And I want to go in the bureau, but the police, I knew the police on my beat. In fact, I ended up being the captain of one of my guys that were on patrol. Well, he was getting ready to relieve. He was a lieutenant by then, but he was the district policeman and the PAL club at Brookside.
Right.
In fact, the police I became his captain too. To work the PAL club at Brookside Park, because I could test, I could read and write. And the chief of police do that, and the assistant chief did too. And I was given the opportunity to do a lot of things. I really was. And,
So you knew those guys, and that seemed like an avenue.
and you had to have the opportunity. When I was training commander, I wrote the tests for promotion and taught in the promotion school. And I graded number 1 on the test. Well, I didn't know all the answers, but
Right.
Because you had a written test, you had an oral test, and history of employment and all that.
Right. So then, about when did you start with the police department?
1957.
57. Okay, so you were just kind of working odd jobs or
Well,
different
I
types
was a
of jobs.
tax accountant.
You were a what?
Tax accountant.
Oh.
They moved the Army Finance Center and we're needing people. And I passed the civil service test. And I ended up being the accountant for the Fifth Army.
Wow.
I did for the taxes for the Fifth Army, which is the Fifth Army's headquarters out of Chicago.
Okay.
When it was there, but so I stayed there. Well, then I knew I wanted to be a police, but you had to be 24 to apply for the police department at that time.
Okay.
So when I was 24, I applied, but I was married, but then. And,
So did you move to Chicago, or could you do that work here?
I did it here.
You did it here.
Because
okay.
this was the finance headquarters for the United States Army.
Okay.
But they had different divisions that took care of the accounting for.
Gotcha. Okay.
And now I can't even do my own taxes.
It's complicated.
Well, I could, but I can never pay.
I know. So in what ways, especially as you got into your 20s, how did your awareness of politics evolve, or as you matured, how did you kind of fall into?
Well, probably just the people I dealt with and watching what was going on in government and knowing when somebody was lying. I read the Constitution and I could read bills. I don't know, just interested. Because I think this is the greatest country ever founded. It's going to hell right now. But the Constitution is, those guys that wrote that are great. I had that book that a lot of the forefathers read. It was The Spirit of Laws by de Montesquieu. And I found it when I was over at the FBI Academy in George Washington's old town of Occoquan, which is right up close to Montgomery. There was a bookstore there, and I found a leather-bound copy, 1768 edition of The Spirit of Laws, translated from the French by his son-in-law, the Baron de Secondant, in English.
Wow.
Well, I've always been looking for stuff. My oldest boy's got that book down here.
Wow.
I don't know, I was just from reading and paying attention to what's going on. And as you got to be a policeman, you saw the dirty work in politics. And I decided I had to be a part of it somehow.
Okay. Well, when you say that, dirty work of politics, what do you mean? What did you see from the police side?
Well, because there were certain bootleggers that were allowed to work, certain whorehouses that were operating, and nobody could touch them. And I just said, this is not right.
So do I understand you as saying, like, you wanted transparency?
If this is going to be recorded, hell, I don't care. They don't like me anyway.
Well, just that you didn't like the idea that some people got special treatment?
Right, yeah. And that's not meant to be under our system, the Constitution.
Okay, got it.
Protection. See, I considered what I was as a policeman was a hired gun. I was doing something you had the right to do, but you paid me to do it. But you still had the right. And that's still the system. The police powers only come from the citizen. Government powers only come from the citizen. And that's been my philosophy.
Yeah, interesting.
But it don't make any hero out of me, though, because they don't care. A lot of them don't care.
Yeah.
But I've had a good life.
Okay. So you were in the police force for a while, and then you went back to college. Is that right?
Well, I stayed there. I went to college while I was a policeman.
Okay.
Yeah.
And where did you go?
IUPOI to start with.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I pick up whatever I could.
You've got several degrees, don't you?
Yeah. I've got 3 graduate credit hours in economics from John F. Kennedy College in Wahoo, Nebraska.
Wow.
And that was taught at the IU Law School by a friend of mine.
Okay, gotcha.
Who became part of the United States Department of Transportation under Reagan. He's dead now too. Everybody's dead.
Yeah, that happens.
But anyway, in Wahoo, Nebraska. They named it John F. Kennedy College, just trying to get the liberal money for the college, what they did. And I've got graduate statistics from the University of Virginia. Because when I went to the FBI Academy, I already had a bachelor's degree.
Okay.
So there's a lot of classes I didn't have to go to. But they offered some at the University of Virginia, would come in on, see the Quantico, Virginia is the FBI headquarters, that's big.
Yeah.
It's on the Marine base. And so since I didn't have to go to all the classes, I took whatever they would offer. So I took the graduate statistics. I didn't understand all, but I got the high grade on it.
Good for you.
But I played tennis every day too, because I could find an FBI agent or a Marine who wasn't busy to play tennis.
So you have a couple of masters, one in like public administration?
It's
or
public administration.
Public administration, okay.
I'm an ABD. I'm a doctor without I didn't do the dissertation.
Gotcha.
I got so damn bored of reading my own writing. And your doctoral committee sets the standards for you. Well, I had nice guys, but I just got tired of that crap.
Yeah.
What happened was that I needed to go on campus to finish my doctorate. And by then, the chief of police, who was Gene Gallagher, another friend of mine, and I was just finishing the legislature. He had put me in, I was in charge of planning and research for the department, which meant I could go to the State House when I needed to.
Yeah.
You know. So I knew I had to go on, I had a boat down the Lake Monroe, a houseboat. And I knew I had to go to campus. I could go down to summer school and finish the coursework. So, and I had passed a law earlier as a lobbyist that you could have sabbaticals from the police department, no pay, but they could give you leave to go.
Sure.
And so I knew I could do that. So I told the chief of police, he said, okay. He said, I'll talk to the mayor. Well, Hudnut was the mayor, and Hudnut, I didn't get along at all. And he said, no. The mayor told the chief of police that he can't take leave to go. So I said, I'm retiring in 2 weeks.
Yeah. So you'll get your leave one way or the other.
So, well, I had 22 years.
Yeah.
And I knew I didn't want to be a guard or anything. I wanted to teach is what I wanted to do. And which I rather enjoyed. And so I went down and lived on the boat for summer. And one guy on my doctoral committee came down and drank beer with me. We had steaks. Well, I had 3 guys on my committee. One of them was a former dean of the College of the South. The other one was the former dean of boys at IU, Bob Schaefer, and Jerry. And but I just got tired of it. And I by then I was doing the Hoosier Auto Show, which I'd been the treasurer of ever since it began, and I was running it full time. And I had opportunities to Pan American University. When at the FBI Academy, my good friend over there was a Mexican American who was chief of police down on the border, an American. He was an American at Far, Texas. The Pan American University was down there. And they beat IU in one of the big tournaments a long time with basketball. So my wife and I and the kids went down and chief of police in Mexico, the city in Mexico, across the border, he's the king. We had a good time. Brian, my doctor's son, drank vodka or tequila in Mexico.
Yeah, when in Rome.
But so I had the job on the faculty if I wanted it. At the, my friend became chief of police at the the academy or the college after he retired from the police department. But I got 1,600 miles from here, and my mother was still alive. My mother-in-law, I had a job in Illinois, University of Illinois. They took me over.
Yeah.
One didn't die in me. I got back and they called and said, "We want you in 2 weeks." I said, "Who the hell wants to move to Springfield, Illinois?" I'd do that. And I had a job in Washington. I didn't take that.
Well, you did teach a little bit, right?
I taught down here.
What was
At the University of Indiana, which is down. Which is down. It's Indiana.
Well,
University of Indiana. It was Indiana Central.
There we go. Yeah. Okay. So
my master's is from there.
Okay.
And so I taught down there because they had a law enforcement program, but I taught psychology too.
Okay.
And criminal investigation, introduction of justice and all that.
Well, tell me a little bit about your police career, working for the Indianapolis Police Department.
Well, I started out as a patrolman actually, and at my long assignment, I was on the police car at Fountain Square for almost 7 years. And at that time, that police district, you know where Fountain Square is?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, you know where Prospect Street. Our district went all the way east on Prospect to the city limits, all the way down Shelby to the city limits. Two of us took care of a quarter of the city, is what we did. And we took care of whatever took place. So I delivered several babies down there. I got one named after me.
Wow.
Because also at that, there was one tavern down there that I don't know why I got to know them, but they were friendly anyway. They were right there on Prospect, at Laurel Prospect, east of the fountain. And they had a softball team. I played on the tavern softball team.
That's fun.
And I delivered one of the guys on the softball team's kids. But that's the one they named after. But whenever I had trouble down there, around some of the joints, I usually had help because I played ball with a lot of the drinkers. And so I was there 7 years. And I bowled with, I was a bowler also. And some of the guys, and they had rank on the department because the F fraternal or police sponsored bowling team. But we got to be friends. One was a detective lieutenant. He said, "I need you in detectives." He took me in. I got promoted to sergeant after a while. He became assistant chief of police, and I became detective lieutenant, and I was in charge of robbery.
Now, did that keep you in the same area or over the whole city? Like, where were you then stationed out of?
I was a sergeant lieutenant. I was a sergeant on the east side investigation.
Okay.
As a lieutenant, I was in charge of the south side investigation. Then I became detective captain. I was in charge of homicide and robbery with the whole city.
Wow.
We had a 90% clearance rate of murders then.
It was a what?
Had a 90% clearance rate of solving the murder.
Wow.
Well, so anyway.
I bet you saw some pretty nasty stuff.
I guess so, yeah. Yeah, psychologically, I'm still okay. You have no idea the way people treat each other.
Yeah, goodness.
It's a lot of hard people.
Yeah.
But, so I was there, and then as training commander, I taught at the academy out there in Plainsfield for the other police, and held seminars. And then with the Navy, I also did some training there. I was Americanism training officer. And I've been to Navy nuclear school.
Wow.
I've had uranium in my hand.
Wow.
Not even glow in the dark.
You're probably lucky about that. So what do you mean when you say Americanism training? What did that look like?
The Constitution mostly, and the system of government. And
so do you know how it works?
Yeah, how it's supposed to. That's the duty of the armed forces, of course.
Yeah.
Those ways, so.
Okay. Well, were you still working as a police officer when you got into lobbying, or did that come later?
Yeah, no, I was an active policeman.
Okay.
Yeah, I was elected as an officer in the fraternal police.
Okay.
Was a trustee of the organizations. It's like a union, but it's not. It's not a union. It's just it's a free standing organization. If you want to join, you can. If you don't want to, you can. And so there's no, whatever we negotiated is not law or mandatory or anything. It's you try to convince people. But, so I was an officer there. Well, then the fellow that was president of Indianapolis, finally after he and I were elected on the same bunch, he wanted me to be the lobbyist. We thought we needed somebody to look after our interests over there, especially the pension.
Sure.
Because it's under the state law. And so I became that.
Okay.
And then I became the state fraternal police wanted me to do that. And I did that. And then my friend who first asked me to do it became national president. He put me as the national.
Wow.
So, and he said, my people travel first class. So first class on the airplane, and rode up. I did that for 2 years.
So
you talk about real this guy. I thought I knew things about the government. What do you learn? In Washington, D.C., At the time I was going over there.
And did you have to move there, or you just
No, I
traveled?
was going back and forth. I'd fly first class
Yeah.
and carry my Walkman at that time. Because the air pilots like to have an armed policeman on the airplane. But they can't do that anymore. But anyway, so at that time, Washington, D.C. had 17 police agencies, had jurisdiction around. And the one at the United States Capitol was the Capitol Police. They had more policemen than we did in Indianapolis. It's a 1 mile area. And they had more crime there than anywhere in the United States.
Wow.
That's your nation's capital.
That's crazy.
Yeah. But even when I was at the FBI Academy, I had to go down and see somebody. If I had a car, the police there had a parking place for me.
Yeah.
I didn't have to. I could walk up the Capitol steps and go in. But
Wow. So then you lobbied for 2 years at the federal level, right?
yeah,
Is that right?
yeah.
And then,
Jimmy Carter was president. And I was invited to the White House. I didn't go.
yeah.
I was too embarrassed to.
So that must have been late 70s, right? Mid to late 70s.
Yeah, towards the late 70s.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but you were still an active police
I
officer
didn't retire
here.
until 79.
Okay, 79. Okay. Well, jumping back just a little bit, when did you get married then?
That's a long story.
Okay.
Want to hear it?
I do.
Oh, okay. When I was 19, I was dating a girl who was a cheerleader at Tech. She was a cute little thing. And she didn't get along with her mother. She was always unhappy at home and this and that. So I married her. And we had a baby. I was working I was working at Fort Harrison, I guess. Yeah,
What were you doing at Fort Harrison?
finance.
Oh, okay.
And I came home from work one day, and we had a hired babysitter. She was working at the phone company. I'm 19, 20 years old.
And you had a boy or a girl?
Little girl.
Little girl. Okay.
She said, I don't want to be married anymore. I said, what the hell does that mean? She said, I want you to move. So I did. I still do. So it turned out, I got a call from a babysitter one day. She said, I haven't seen Judy. And the baby's still here. And I went over and got the child. And my mother and sister helped with the baby. She's gone.
Just gone.
And so I went to court and got a quick divorce, desertion. So I got custody of the child.
Right.
She called me a little while later. I think she was in Virginia or Tennessee someplace. Drunk and on drugs. And she died. And
Like young? She died young?
yeah, she was probably in her 30s anyway.
Oh my goodness.
But she'd been a mess.
Yeah.
You just don't know. So there I am, 20-some years old, or about 20. I'm a single father.
Wow.
So, like I said, my mother and my sister helped. And that lady that was taking care of on the east side, they were good. And her husband and her kids. And so if I needed a babysitter, she would do it. But my mother mostly. So, boy, that's ugly.
Might need a new one there.
And when I was at high school, there was a girl that I knew, another one, worked at the drugstore on the corner. Then you walked everywhere you wanted to go. Those were good times. You have no idea how things were going downhill. But anyway, I'd see her down there, and she was 2 years older than me. I thought she was kind of cute, but she's too old for me. So turned out she went off to Purdue. But while she was up there, she got married. She got pregnant. Well, he left her. Well, I didn't know all this.
Yeah.
But one day I'm having a beer in the tavern there on East 10th Street, which I played jazz in there, and they had good music, and I knew everybody. And her brother came in, who I knew, and he was in the Air Force, so he was home on leave. And I asked about her.
Yeah.
And he said, she's at home. I said, oh, well, she's divorced and she got a child. I said, do you think I could call her? And he said, yeah, you can call her. I did. We started dating. We dated a year and got married.
Oh. And what was her name?
Marianne.
Marianne. Okay.
And we're married 16 years.
Wow.
She died 2 years ago.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
But it worked out great. She had a boy and I had a girl. So we started out with 2. And it was on, where the hell was I living? I was living with my mom, I guess. Yeah, I had to be because the baby was there. Well, I had an apartment before that. But we bought a house over there by Christian Park. It was brand new. And her dad loaned me $1,000 for down payment.
Wow.
And so we moved in, had 4 of us all to start with, and it was a brand new house. And I expanded it after we had several children. We had 4 more children.
Yeah, you might need more
I
room.
built 2 rooms on the back and 1 upstairs. We had plenty of room. We lived there 39 years.
Okay. So did you live there up until you came here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I sold the place. It was getting hard to sell east side of Indianapolis, but I finally sold it. Then we didn't have any place to go. So I rented a townhouse down Southport for 6 months, and we still couldn't find any place to buy that I could afford and that's where you wanted to live. So I kept doing it month by month. We were there a year. I finally found this place, and that's when I came out here and I said, "Oh, number 2 boy, fix it."
Yeah.
We'll even, but by then we had a place in Florida, and we spent a lot of winters down there.
Yeah.
And we lived on first winter on the boat
Oh, wow.
in the yacht basin at Fort Myers.
Yeah. So, what were the names of your children?
Pardon?
What were the names of your children?
Well, Hollis is the first one.
Okay.
Teresa is, Hollis is an engineer. He's Purdue. He runs 4 factories. He's in Grand Junction, Colorado right now. That's where he's home. But he's got 2 factories there. He's got 1 in St. Louis, Missouri and St. Louis, and 1 in Palmetto, Florida.
Wow.
And he's getting ready to retire because he travels all the time. He's headed to Europe to buy machinery and all. They make auto parts. And so he was just here. In fact, he called me yesterday. They bought a motorhome. It was they had to go to South Carolina to get it. They drove it back through here.
Whoa.
But and daughter Teresa is a retired principal in Indianapolis Public Schools.
Okay.
And she's married to a retired policeman whom she must. I used to hire her and her brother, well, stepbrother. When I was a personnel director in the summertime, we hired college students. Well, I hired my own kids. Well, she met her husband at police headquarters. And in fact, she was the secretary in the vice office, and he was on the vice squad. But they got married.
Yeah.
So she's retired as a principal. And she's got 2 kids. They're a mess, but well, she's raising a grandchild who was born a heroin addict. Mother's dead.
It's tough.
But anyway, but financially they're okay. And number 3 son his name's Anthony.
Okay.
He was a construction worker. He did roofs and buildings. He did that building. He's got arthritis so bad he can't work anymore. He's disabled. He's fell off too many roofs. What he did. But he's getting by.
Yeah.
Number 4 child, Brian, is the doctor in Arizona, Colorado. What's good? There's a shortage of doctors. Well, they're moving him around. You got time for this story?
Sure.
Well, anyway, he was having a hard time getting to medical school because he went to Indiana, a private college at the time. And they wanted you to give B's. They thought that was good. They thought C's were good. They didn't like A's. And so he's down there, he's on a football scholarship. He's a B plus average.
Still pretty good.
So, but this is racist, but he's a white boy. he's a male. He was having a hard time getting to medical school. He's got 3 master's degrees in biology, along after plus regular BA. And then he was doing autopsies for the Marion County coroner. He knows medicine.
Yeah.
He still couldn't get in school. Well, I had a friend who was a doctor in New Orleans who owned a clinic there in one of Belize, South America, who also was a football player down in Alabama. Well, I was going to send him to Tulane. We were going to go to Tulane because Boopy, Mike Simpson, donates a lot of money to Tulane. But it turned out, when Bob Daly speaker of the House, I told Bob, I said, they keep turning him down for medicine. He's got a B+ average for a private college. They kept turning down. And I told Bob, I said, I'm going to talk to the director of the medical school. So Bob said, let me do it. We got him in.
Yeah.
He got him in. Let's see, this is favoritism again. And Brian's smart,
Yeah.
and he's a good worker, but there wasn't any money coming to the medical school the way they wanted it to come and all that. He got in.
Yeah.
He graduated.
Good for him. So,
In the meantime, part-time, he's still doing autopsies. He knows more about bodies than half the people that ever graduated from school. But so he got through. So then as soon as he gets out of medical school, Methodist Hospital, they want the new graduates. Well, they're signing contracts, like baseball players. Methodist is giving signing. So they did that. Well, then when the contract was up, they wanted to start telling them how to run their medical office. So he quit. He went to St. Francis. St. Francis he and his partner had a private practice. They're across the street from the hospital, St. Francis. St. Francis bought their practice because they couldn't afford the insurance. But then they started telling them 10 minutes with each patient. So Brian quit and went to a health place over in South Carolina, where he was the medical director over there. But then again, they started putting load stuff. It was a private place.
yeah.
They didn't take in, insurance. Wealthy people. Well, they started putting the pressure on. Well, it turned out there was an opening in southern Arizona at the hospital. And the CEO was getting ready to retire. And so the medical director out there hired Brian to come in and take his place. He became the medical director.
Wow.
And Sierra Vista is it's real small, it's on the Mexican border. But it's right south of Nogales, or close to Nogales. But that's an army base there. Sierra is Fort Huachuca was during the Indian Wars. They fought the Apaches. Well, it's still an army base, and a big army base.
Wow.
And there's a lot of retired military out there. So Brian was the medical director there. Well, due to the Medicare and Medicaid and the paperwork, it's just. So he's doing the emergency rooms now.
Okay.
He's done a lot of that too.
Yeah.
But those patients you send off, who after you do the report, you don't have to follow up.
Yeah.
He's on his way next week to Cheyenne Wells, Colorado, to run the emergency room for a week.
Wow.
They're doing this all over.
Yeah.
And he's still doing his emergency room in Arizona.
My goodness.
He may go to Idaho. Johnson County wants him. And they pay all their expenses for everything.
Yeah.
Like when he goes to Colorado, they pay his airfare back and forth, rental car while he's there, a place to live while he's there, and a food subsidy, plus $100 and some an hour, 24 hours a day.
Wow. Wow. It's pretty
But
good.
how long the country can't stand this?
No,
Because these people build these hospitals and these emergency rooms out there, there's nobody to fill them. Because these young doctors, they don't want to go to Cheyenne Wells, Colorado, or Boca Raton, Idaho, or this and that. They want to go where the action is.
Right.
They get there and they find out they really don't want to be there.
Yeah.
But,
So Brian was number 4?
He's number 4.
Okay.
Number 5 is Gail. She's a hairdresser, runs a shop up in Castleton.
Okay.
She's in her 50s. Youngest is Annette. She's the one that's living here. She works at Lowly's.
Okay.
And she's got 3 daughters. But one of them's married, one of them was just had breast surgery all the way across.
Okay.
28 years old. She's the one who was the athlete. And she's a gym instructor at the Y and all, as part-time and all that. But anyway, she's had that done. So she's not married. But her fiance just went on the Franklin Police Department.
Oh, the police run through your family.
Yeah. And the other girl, he's a pipe fitter. The youngest is still at school. She's a junior.
Oh. Okay. So. Oh no, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
I don't know. That's all.
Oh, okay. Well, so. You had, obviously you're married and had a lot of kids. Did your family influence any of your career decisions?
Well, of course. Yeah, I stayed here. I could have gone to Washington, D.C. You have no idea what I almost did. The Rockefellers owned a lot of the Virgin Islands down there. There's a state or a federal museum and this and that. I probably could have had that job. Well, you mentioned Keith Buell. Okay. Well, I knew him, but he was a kingmaker. But I didn't like him for the things he did, but he wasn't evil to me or anything. He might have been, I don't know. But he controlled Marion County politics. But I was not the mayor's favorite, nor the governor. The governor didn't like me either, because I voted against the governor's pension and spoke against it. I don't think elected officials should get pensions. So, and I didn't. But anyway, Buell's secretary worked for me at the State House when I was in charge of and I knew her anyway, because she was always friendly to me because I was a police lobbyist. I got along with everybody over there.
Sure.
So when Reagan got elected, Reagan's another story.
We'll get to that.
Huh?
We can get to that.
But anyway, Buell was put in charge of White House personnel and took his secretary with him to go. Well, he also took my friend Tim Hunter, who was director of Intercollegiate Studies Institute, which was a national college conservative bunch run out of Michigan. Tim ran the office. They took him with him to be on the White House staff of personnel. So my friend and former employee were on the staff of White House personnel.
That's interesting.
And I didn't go.
Do you think you could have gone?
Yeah. No.
So.
You know, I think Tim's dead now. Tim became part of the State Department. They sent him to Saudi Arabia. And when he came back from Saudi Arabia, he wrote a newspaper article about the corruption in American politics in a foreign nation. And they printed it in the paper. I tried to find him, he's gone. He had the kids. He had an apartment over in Washington, D.C. A foreigner answered his phone when I called. They probably killed him. It does happen all the time.
So is this recently or like back in the 80s?
Well, late 80s, 90s.
And so he was one of the guys who had been over here.
Yeah.
Your buddy.
Yeah, Tim Hunter.
And so you don't know what happened to him?
No. And it turned out my friend was editor of the Indianapolis News, Stan Evans.
Okay.
Well, he was too conservative. They bumped him out. You remember Quayle?
Of course.
Well, Quayle's daddy was a member of the John Birch Society. And Birch Bayh was a United States Senator. Corrupt. Let me tell you. Well, I ran the statewide committee to ship out Bayh. And Dan Quayle got elected. Now, Dan was afraid of me because I was too conservative. Even though his daddy They ran the newspaper in Huntington, Indiana. They were part of the Pulitzer. The people that owned the Star, the Pullmans, they were all relatives of it. But he was just shaky, Dan was. But his wife was pretty conservative. She was pretty sound. So I had contacts. But I knew there was so much corruption. And my friend that taught the economics class at law, he was in the Department of Commerce. But Reagan was not what everybody said he was.
In what way?
Well, first of all, as an actor, he was president of the Screen Actors Guild, which was a communist front organization, designated so by the House Committee on Un-American Activities, a whole bunch of communists out there. He was president. He got elected governor of California as a Democrat. And then when Barry Goldwater was running for the president, and Roger Stone, who they're trying to destroy right now, was his campaign, Barry Goldwater's campaign manager. Barry Goldwater was a real American. And I can't remember the general's name, but the retired general was going to be the vice presidential candidate. They kept we're going to nuclear war, and they destroyed Goldwater. Well, so there was a big vacuum, no conservative Republican. Here comes Ronald Reagan. After it's too late, giving the best speech you ever heard on national television. He became Mr. Conservative.
So for you, it felt like an act?
Yeah. Right after he was president, he presidentially ordered $66 billion of my tax money to Communist China to rebuild their steel industry. You have no idea just how. When Roosevelt was president in 1933, took me a long time to learn. He declared gold non-persona non grata in the United States. Gold, by then, required gold and silver backing in the money. Roosevelt declared gold illegal in the United States in private hands by the presidential order, and sent the agents into banks to get everybody gold out of the safety deposit boxes. I've got the copy of the order in there. He stole everybody's gold. And they let it happen.
So did you feel like Reagan was doing like the same type of thing behind the scenes?
Yeah, with Communist China. More on. Bush became, George, the senior Bush became the first ambassador to Communist China after we sold out the Chinese. Chiang Kai-shek was a Christian. And he married Mei Ling Soon, who was a Christian, she was raised in the United States. After Chiang died, Mei Ling married General Claire Chennault, who was the head of the Flying Tigers fighting the Japanese and the communists. But nobody knows this stuff. And John Birch saved Jeremy Doolittle. They bombed Tokyo. And knew they couldn't get back, not enough fuel. So they had to crash land or parachute out. Doolittle was found by Chinese and taken John Birch. John Birch got him out of China. Nobody knows this stuff. They don't want to learn anything. They just go along with the program. And I don't. Well, I have to. I'm old.
Well, I have to ask this too, because this is interesting, hearing your perspective on sort of what's going on in the background. So I know too, I think it was mid-70s, you were a supporter or a fan of George Wallace. So how did you come to, what was it about Wallace that appealed to you?
Constitutionalist. And he was against big government. Of the federal government telling the states what to do. That was the Civil War, if you recall. Well, it's still, but it was a constitutionalist. And he loved police.
He was a big law and order. He used that phrasing a lot too.
I had lunch with him on his airplane.
Really?
Was the chief and when he was running for president, they put me in charge of his security.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, did he come through Indianapolis?
Yeah.
Because I know he did the tours
I had
around.
lunch out there at the airport with him on the airplane. He was real. And they tried to kill him.
Who did?
The enemy did. They shot him 5 times.
So Just from a historical perspective, I mean, Wallace was a controversial figure.
By whom?
Well,
yeah. It's kind of like Trump, wasn't it?
Well, in some ways, yeah. So, but I know like a lot of, he was very outspoken on race issues in the South. Right. So what, could you separate those things out, or what was it, did that matter to you, or?
Well, no, he was a constitutionalist. He wasn't against the Negroes. He was against giving them things extra, but he was also protecting them. He was.
So it was about following the Constitution.
There's a whole lot of places named after him down there still, and he was a states' rights constitutionalist.
I think I've read in some, I mean, we haven't gotten to your legislative career yet, but in here too, you were very adamant about powers being returned to the states. So how did that become a defining tenet for you, that states should hold more of the power than, say, federal government or whoever?
Because of the 10th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States. Those are left to the states and the people themselves.
And you felt that that's just been out of whack for...
Well, look at the budget. Look at all these agencies and this and that. I'm just a constitutionalist, I guess you would say.
Yeah, so that's the driving piece for you.
George Mason was a friend of mine. I didn't get to know him, but he was next door to George Washington. And he wrote the Virginia Resolves, which really became the amendments to the Constitution.
Yeah.
But he didn't want to leave his home in Virginia or to go to Washington. But it's just those people and what I knew about those people. And Jefferson's been had a colored baby. Crap. I gave a speech one night out at I can't think of that. Where the presidents are carved in the rock.
Oh.
Rushmore.
Yeah.
Mount Rushmore.
Yeah.
And I felt half of them I could get along with, the other two I didn't want. But I had to give
I feel like I could guess.
It was Roosevelt and Lincoln. Horace Greeley was the owner and publisher of the New York Tribune when the Civil War started. He printed articles written by Karl Marx and Frederick Engels in the newspaper. The editor of the paper was Charles Dana, who was a communist from Europe. Also, he was made Assistant Secretary of War by Lincoln. Sherman was a communist.
Who?
Sherman, was Burr in Georgia.
Yes, Sherman. Interesting.
And his brother was also a communist, United States Senator from Ohio. And that just a few of them. They've been in the United States since the 1840s because the revolution failed in Europe at that time, and a lot of them came to the United States.
In that, I understand, is one of the driving tenets of the John Birch Society, right? Anti-communism.
Yeah, well, but it's not only communists, but anybody that will usurp the Constitution of the United States and support our enemies.
Well, so that's fascinating. Or how would you account for, Reagan is really hailed as the conservative hero.
I know, but I go back before all that happened, see? And Bill Jenner, who was a United States Senator from Bedford, was a friend of Joe McCarthy from Wisconsin. And Jenner was the last good senator we had in Indiana. And he told us, he did run again. He said, there's too many of them over, I can't fight it any longer. They're in control. Now he's talking about what Trump is fighting now. The deep state, they were there. They've been there for 200 years almost. See, Lincoln was second Republican candidate for president. Fremont was the first. Fremont was another one. And because the Republicans were Whigs to start with, and the Whigs weren't doing the right thing, so they created the Republican Party, which came out of the log cabin Republicans in Wisconsin. You heard about that? Okay.
Well, the Free Soilers too, before that, right?
Huh?
The Free Soilers?
Yeah.
Before that too?
So things have been going on for a long time.
Well, let's get into your political career then, and sort of how these ideas came together for you. So how did you first more seriously, or how did you become more seriously involved in politics?
Well, while I was around the State House a lot.
As a lobbyist.
Yeah. And I just paid attention to what was going on nationally and locally. And that guy that didn't run again in my district was a real liberal.
No, we didn't get that story on record. Remind me. So how did you come into running then for state government?
Well, there were a lot of people that I gave a lot of talks on the east side of schools and this and that, and a lot of people just said, "Why don't you run?" My neighbors with the precinct committee went down there, down the street from me, and a lot of people that I knew were active in politics.
And remind me what district you were in.
Irvington area, east Indianapolis and Marion County.
Okay.
It was 44 to start with, and
Yeah.
they changed the number. But we had all on the east side of Indianapolis, and Lawrence, part of Beech Grove, and part of Franklin Township.
Okay.
And I've done a lot of things as a policeman, also. Done public appearances, talks at the schools and things like that. And
Sure.
I knew a lot of people. I guess they were okay with me. They wanted me to run. The churches backed me. Not just the church, all of them. I'm not different denominations, but I had a lot of preachers working for me.
And what did you belong to a particular
Yeah, I
church?
belonged to the Christian Church. It's a Dutch Reformed Church. I had to bring the preacher was reading the John Birch Society materials, and he got so conservative they dumped him.
Wow.
His name was, he had the last name in the phone book, Thomas Zylstra, double Z. He was Dutch. It was the Dutch Reformed. And some of my neighbors went to, and the church, I took the kids to Sunday school there, and my wife did, and worked at the church. So I'm inclined to be a Baptist, but since I had a good preacher there, and he had, Dutch Reformed was okay with me. They believe in God and Christ.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So you had the backing of the churches, and people were telling you you should run.
Yeah.
Now it was a special election, correct?
Yeah, to get the first time.
Yeah. Because someone had resigned. Is that right?
Yeah,
Someone had resigned.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of his name.
I have it here. I know somewhere.
He was a preacher out there in Irvington, but he got messing around with somebody else's wife.
Daniel Huff.
Huff, that's it. He was a real liberal, and he didn't fit. But he was Sweezy's guy. See, Sweezy was running a private company and then paying him off the county payroll. A newspaper guy came to me with his tax records.
Interesting.
They ran some real winners against me, let me tell you.
So, did you have to campaign much for that first election?
I had a lot of workers. I did. I campaigned. I went to schools and public clubs and stuff like that.
Sure. Did you have issues or talking points? Like what was important to you?
Mostly the control of government. Yeah. Too much government and too much money. Waste of money. And crime. See, probably the last guy executed in Indiana was my friend. Killed him. He was Navy with me, but he was also a detective sergeant when I ran homicide. He was shot to death by a Negro robber that also killed a bank guard. But I believe in the death penalty. You know, as long as everybody got a right to prove who this and that, I believe in the system. But if they kill somebody else and desert it, why should we keep them around? But Jack Orberg was his name. They got killed. He and I were in the Seabees together, and then I was his captain. But yeah, crime. Crime now it's terrible. It's just. And so we didn't put up with that. When I was on that police car found squad, we didn't have anybody sleeping homeless downtown and anywhere. We went to the Indiana State Farm in Putnamville, which is closed now. Now it's for ladies. But we used to, back then, and it's still the law. You had when a law enforcement, you had to be able to prove a means of support and some proper identity. If you back then, if you were a bum, we sent you to Putnamville, and you had to work out there. They raised the cattle and chickens and made bricks and everything for the state institutions. It's not there anymore. They closed Central State Hospital.
So do you feel like that's what's caused some of the problems?
Yeah. There's no control over anything. They send the mentally disabled out in houses in the neighborhood. It really affects the neighborhood, doesn't it? And it doesn't help the patients. I played the band at Central State Hospital. We took the musicians union. We used to go over and play for the patients. But I had dinner the other night with the guy that still runs the union. But I belong to the union, but I'm not a union guy. You know, I don't believe that it's mandatory. But again, Indianapolis was music center and automobile center for the United States for a long time.
Wow. So that first election, at least, do you remember who your main opponent was?
Yeah, there were some Swedish boys, but
Yeah,
I remember. I can't remember his name.
yeah.
Actually, I ended up later. I hired his wife to work part time down there, though.
But it was
I don't hold a grudge.
Yeah. So was it just Republican primary? Was that where you're?
Yeah, just the Republican caucus. Yeah.
Okay.
Like it was the same precinct committeeman. I think that was all.
Yeah.
And the elected officials
Okay.
in that township.
Okay. So.
I had the backing of the Warren Township Republicans.
Yeah.
My guy, Fred Munchie, I went to high school with his sister, and they lived over at Christian Park. But Fred was very active out in Warren Township, and I almost got him elected to Congress. He wouldn't. Well, we tried.
Yeah, close. Well, what did your first election day feel like? What was that like for you?
We were happy. The police were happy, and the president of the FOP stopped by the house and congratulated, because he ran my campaign pretty well too. And, we just the neighbors.
Yeah. Well.
I was excited. I mean, I was the first policeman elected.
Right, because you had changed that law as a lobbyist, right?
Yeah.
And,
well, I encouraged the change.
Sure. Well, tell me a little bit about that, because I don't think we got that on record either. You just felt like it was unfair? The police and fire department were cut out like that?
Yeah, why everybody else could run for office. I knew why, because the police sometimes, you had the power of arrest and all that, but still. And the police didn't have a union like the teachers.
Yeah.
The fire department does, but the police didn't. And but I just felt it was, why is this certain segment of people that really are serving the community can't run for office? And we had to beg and plead to get anything done politically, because that's what governed our lives, really. The criminal code and the state law and the pensions and all that.
Yeah. So, so you ran the special election, and then you had 2 other elections you would have gone through, right? So did you change your campaign strategy for each one, or is it sort of the same issues, same tactics?
No, we ran as a team, Bosma, Dan Burton, and Gordon Harper and I.
Okay. So named as it Bosma, Harper,
And Miles.
Mutz.
No, not much. Much.
What was the other one? I didn't catch the other one you said.
Gordon Harper.
Gordon Harper.
And myself.
Dan Burton.
Dan Burton. And So what the hell was the third one? Well, after a while, it was another employee of Sleazy Sweezy.
We'll let you think about it, or we can
Well,
look.
he's on the last sheet. I got one.
Anyways. Would you say it was Bosma?
Well, Charlie was he was in the Senate.
He was in Senate. I get that confused
Yeah.
because
He's in there someplace. I might have thrown him over here with the Democrats. I should have. I thought he was in that last time I was in there. Maybe they didn't let him in. I don't know.
well, you can look at the last
Oh,
one.
that's 78. No.
Yeah, here's the last one.
I have a hard time remembering his name because his personality was a dud anyway. This is terrible. Here it is, Buell, Larry Buell.
There we go. Yeah.
He worked for Sleazy Sweezy
Okay.
both times.
So was it?
Oh, we can do
You
that.
can leave that on. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, well, I've got lots of political questions here, but was it challenging for you being a more conservative in terms of getting along internally with the Republican
No,
Party?
I had a great relationship with almost everybody. I
Okay.
do, maybe phony, but a lot of them would come to ask me how should I vote because they didn't like the conservative rating didn't look bad for them.
Yeah.
How should I vote on this bill? And I spoke against the governor. So I got on the floor. They wanted to raise his pension. Well, first of all, I didn't think they should get a pension. He's a wealthy doctor. He stole about half the land up north of Indiana anyway. Did you know about that?
Well,
Remember
no.
about the brucellosis scare? But I was almost hired to go up there and investigate corruption in northern Indiana. And
For
my wife said,
for the land deal?
huh?
For this land?
Yeah, that and wife swapping and all that went on up there. You.
I'll have to dig deeper,
I'm
I
sorry,
guess.
sweetie.
No, it's all right.
You have no, Frank McKinney? I called him a corporate socialist.
It seems like an oxymoron there, but
Well, the Federal Reserve, he needed the Federal Reserve. And they wanted to open, that's another long story about the banking in Indiana. Well, hell with he's dead. McKinney owned the banks, the Hyatt Regency, the merchants and all that. So they had a banking bill. At that time, it was against the law for out-of-state banks to operate in Indiana. Well, McKinney wanted to do that. Well, the reason was because the big banks had taken over the little banks and wipe out the local ownership. And I was against that. I said, I like that law. The bankers in Indiana should bank in Indiana and live here and run it here. But McKinney was all for it, expanding the outside banking company. So he had a big meeting at the Hyatt Regency down there, the Merchants Bank building. But they had the whole ballroom full of all these legislators and politicians. And he's up there giving them hell about we need this and this. And so at the end of the talk, I stood up and I had a question for him. And I said, well, do you think we should get out of the Federal Reserve? He said, no, we need to have that. I said, they create money out of nothing. He said, well, he said they do a good job. And I said, you are a corporate socialist. In front of thousands of people.
Well, what did he do?
He didn't have anything else to say, and I didn't either.
Wow.
But anyway, they passed it finally. I guess why will. Well,
that went on for like a decade, didn't it?
yes, but when you come around where that red mill is down there, Fred Garver lived there. He's dead now. His wife, his widow, still lives there. His family owned that. Well, Fred Garver was a lobbyist for the banks and Power and Light and all that. High dollar. Well, his partner was also a lobbyist. He was a lobbyist. Fred was his name too.
What was the last time you were saying? Garvey?
Garver.
Garver. Okay.
Fred Garver.
Okay.
Okay. So they were lobbying heavily, and I got along with them, but I was always opposed to what they wanted to do, but they were, smiling glad-handers, always. And I wasn't neighbors of him then, but we knew each other.
Sure.
But they had a thing in Chicago, they'd take us all up there. I'd went, but they had to do it because I was part of the game.
Yeah.
The Chicago, Indiana Society, Chicago, they were all big dollars. So that passed. Well, here come the banks. And they took over. Well, Garver went to federal prison because the Berrien County assessor, who was a Democrat, his brother was a judge. The Berrien County assessor bribed Garver about the property tax and stuff, sales tax on that building, where the Hydro Regency and all the banks. And they got caught bribing. Well, his partner also was part of the bribery. He owned a little bank up in Lebanon. Well, right after the bill passed, he sold his bank for $3 million. The two of them, their partner. But they both went to prison. And Fred served 11 months in Terre Haute. That was the end of his lobbying career. And guess what? His son's a lobbyist now. He's also an attorney.
Funny how that works.
But that McKinney. Well, they were part of the Northern India, money, and corruption and sex. And that's where the governor was from. Northern India. The banks.
Well, this time Governor Bowen?
Bowen.
Like Bremen up in that area? Is that what you're talking about? Yeah.
He had 2 terms.
Yeah. He was the first governor to have 2 terms, right?
Huh?
He was the first governor to have 2 terms?
Yeah.
Yeah.
One night, you still on recording me?
Yeah, do you want me to stop?
Yeah, for a minute. I'll tell you a story. Don't get sued by anybody still alive, but then again, they can't prove it anyway.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think that's back on. Okay, well, so you win the first special election. What did you find, or what were you thinking as you actually walked into the State House that first day?
I'd been there a lot, but I was just proud. Here I am. A poor kid from the East Side, really. And I made it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, in some ways this is a silly question because I know you had been around the legislature a lot, but how did you learn the ins and outs of state politics once you were in it?
Well, I already knew.
You knew how it worked.
I tell you, as a policeman, people treated me good. The Democrats did too. The Democratic Attorney's Office for the House did a lot more for me than Bowen's Republican attorney. And I got along with it. And they were conservative to a point. At that time, the Democrats were. And if I needed something printed or this, they'd take care of it. And one of them, I think his wife owned an Italian restaurant up on the north side. I can't remember the name was an Italian name, but they were nice people. But the attorneys down there that I got to know that worked politically in the House would do things. They'd help you around. And I'd say, how do you do this? They'd tell me.
Yeah. So you weren't afraid to ask either?
No, I wasn't shy.
Yeah. Did you have any political mentors as you settled in?
Not really. Not really.
Okay.
No, it's just, well, we did on the outside. Harper was a young attorney.
Is this the Gordon Harper you're talking about?
Yeah, and we knew some of the people in Lawrence politics. And they would they would advise a little bit, but not much. The township trustee for Lawrence Township, Bill Bender, he and I were close friends, even before I was elected, because he was conservative too. He was kept the township trustee, and he returned budget money back every year.
Your type of guy?
Huh?
Your type of guy?
My type of, well, yeah. He was the type of guy they elected him every time. Yeah. And Fred Monson was the same way. He was the assessor for Warren Township. And so, yeah, well, I had those people.
Yeah. Okay.
And they were Republicans, but we were different Republicans.
What exactly made you different Republicans?
Not go along with the flow and asking questions, why?
So pushing back when you thought it was appropriate.
And I could read. The Constitution says this.
Yeah. Okay. Well, how did you know the needs and wants of your constituents?
Well, they would come and tell you. They'd call you. Yeah.
So did you hold events in the district?
Well, I'd go. Well, they had Republican clubs. You had Center Township Republican, Lawrence Republican Club, Warren Republican. Yeah, I'd go to those in Franklin.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
interact
we'd go to
that
those
way.
meetings, and become available.
Sure. Okay. Was there any methods of communication from you to the constituents? Like if you were working on an issue or a bill, did you put out press releases, or was it more just...
I'd do it just the central stuff out of the state house.
Yeah, out of the state house.
No.
Okay.
Occasionally I'd get a press release because I was so controversial that I'd be on television.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time on Channel 12. and the thing was that the Indianapolis Star was kind of conservative. I had a couple of reporters over there that liked me, and they would cover. And there were township newspapers. There was a pretty good one out of Johnson County down out of Franklin, or not Franklin, Greenwood down here, and one in Irvington. They were conservative, and they would
Give you coverage
Yeah,
of
yeah.
the stuff. Okay. Do you remember the first bill that you sponsored, or maybe the first one that had meaning to you? No. Okay. I can look that stuff up too. Well, you've addressed...
Well, the biggest one was that abolishing the Federal Reserve.
I can imagine.
The Liberty Amendment.
That's funny.
Snowden was a counselor over in the Senate.
So he helped sponsor that?
I sponsored it in the House.
You sponsored
I
it in
was
the
it.
House, you sponsored it. Okay.
And your state rep, or United States Rep, Andrew, grandma voted for it.
Who? The...
Carson.
Oh.
Julia.
Julia voted for it.
She said, I'd tell her, she said, what's this? She would ask me what the hell things mean.
Yeah.
She was a nice lady. She was a dumb Republican, but she wasn't all bad. She was a little cruel. She'd eat a candy bar in a legislative meeting and stuff where she testified. But you could talk to her.
Well, tell me a little bit about interactions amongst assembly members, formal or informal. What were your relationships like?
Well, a lot of times I played music at their meetings. I got along pretty well, whatever. The staunch, hardcore bad guys. Rordo was one, and who the hell was Marion County? But anyway. But Charlie Bosma, he was really popular. He and I were great friends.
Yeah.
And I was friends with his son. He's drifted kind of. It used to be, he called me back every time I called him.
Yeah.
Now I don't want to talk to him.
Yeah. So you had pretty good relationships across...
I did, yeah. No real enemies, except political enemies on the outside.
What about
No, because I'd go along with reasonable things. I would know on everything.
Well, what about between Republicans and Democrats?
I got along with the Democrats. Some of them, not the ones from South Bend.
But
Lee Klingon was a Democrat. He should have been a Republican, but Western Indiana. But he and I got along great.
So there was talk across the aisle and working together on certain things?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
We meet in the Columbia Club. And a lot of them stayed there.
Right.
And I wasn't a member, but Jack Ruckelshaus was a member. And since I was the police lobbyist, he said, "Here's my card. Whenever you need to go there, just charge it," and I pay him back.
Yeah.
Now that's trust.
Yeah.
And of course, I joined later after I was out of the house. And I put my office down to test. You know where the test building is? You know where WIRA or WXL, whatever that radio station is, or broadcast.
I'm not sure.
Well, the test building is on the southwest corner of the circle.
Okay. Yeah. The radio
I had an
station
office in there.
Yes. Okay.
My Hoosier Auto Show office was there.
Okay.
And so I joined the club.
Okay. Yeah.
But I had access all the time anyway. With Ruckelshaus.
Yeah.
You talk about a guy that loved police and firemen.
Him.
And he loved everybody. And if you needed an attorney, he was the voice in the courtroom. But anyway.
So, did a lot of the business, or at least talking about the bills and who's voting for what, occur on the floor, or here, I'll pause this real quick. Did a lot of the discussions around bills or who's doing what, did that occur on the floor, or did it occur behind the scenes, like at the Columbia Club?
Everywhere.
Did you so you said you hung out at the Columbia Club some. Were there other places that you would go with legislators?
Oh, yeah. Well, when I was a lobbyist, the Lincoln Hotel was still open. And the police had their headquarters over there, and I'd go over there, we'd go there. But maybe the restaurant, the Hyatt Regency, went to the merchants there.
Yeah.
Close by stuff.
Yeah.
The press club, is that still there?
I don't know.
I think it's closed.
No.
That's where I held one of my campaign announcements.
Press club. What was I going to ask about that? I'm assuming you didn't stay at a hotel or anything. You stayed at home.
I stayed at home.
Yeah, during the, okay. What differences, if any, were there between House members and Senate members?
Quite a bit, depending on the individual. A lot of them thought they were really important. And most of them really weren't. But
why do you think they thought that? Because of the longer
term? I don't, because they had control of a lot of the bills. I can't think of his name. It was Senate Finance Committee, Larry Borst. He thought he was God. He and I had a big argument.
Well, he was tied to Buellen some, right?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And himself. And you had to go see him about any bill. And he'd see a maybe. And I called him a rotten son of a bitch on the hall. And well, it was over Social Security. He's wanting more money. I said, "Yep. You're going to tax the people here so you can live. Well, yeah, you make plenty of money now." He said,
So
I wasn't bashful.
Yeah.
And they knew who I was. But I didn't do anything publicly, or anything like that. But he and I we got along and we didn't, because he knew I was a Republican. Sometimes they needed my vote.
Right.
But most of the Senate, there was just a little haughty, I thought, maybe a little bit. I don't know, because they had 4-year terms.
Right.
And a smaller group.
Sure.
But Gene Snowden, Bosma, there were several there that got along really well.
Yeah. Okay. What was your relationship like with your seatmates?
With who?
Your seatmates?
Oh, pretty good, really good. Dillinger and I sat next to each other for a long time, and he and I were good. And Gordon Harper and I sat next to each other. Even Buell, we got along. I always told him he was dumb, but we got along.
Yeah. Okay. Can you?
Especially when Daley was speaker. If I wanted to get up and talk, I spoke.
Yeah, you got to do that. Well, can you just briefly walk me through the process of generating a bill? What did it look like to propose a piece of legislation?
Well, you had to have it done at legislative
Services.
Yeah. Which was really dangerous
How so?
because they controlled what was in there. And you had to very carefully read and make sure they got it right, or when somebody else wasn't poking them in the ribs.
So you felt like you had to manage
Actually, in my opinion, there were a bunch of liberal Democrats.
in legislative services? Huh, interesting. Because they're supposed to be nonpartisan,
Yeah, I know,
right?
I know. So they are in Washington too. But you had to be careful.
Just double check what was produced
Or I had
after
to
you.
rewrite it.
Okay. So
Because they had to do, once you told them, they had to go along with it. Because
Right.
they are supposed to be working for us.
okay. So you would present an idea or a piece of
Yeah,
legislation,
draft it, yeah.
and then they would.
I wrote, some of them I wrote on a yellow pad
Oh, really?
when I was a lobbyist. I got them through the Senate that way in the old days.
Wow.
I had some good friends over there. And they
Yeah.
were Democrats, a lot of them were Democrats, but they went along with the police, the FOP stuff.
Sure.
And, I did write some bills on the yellow pad. And rewrote them. And they take it on the floor and make an amendment.
So after you got it back from legislative services, how did you shepherd it through?
Well, then you got to get a hearing. The committee chairman's got to call it up, so you'd have to get it on the list and try to convince them that if it wasn't something you'd die for, you didn't want to sell your soul to get it.
Right.
But you introduced it
Sure.
politically.
So was there a lot of back and forth in that regards? Like, I'll give you this, but I need you to help me here? Or?
Sometimes there was. I was the ranking member of judiciary,
Okay.
the only non-attorney at the time, and he was scared to death. He had to be there, or I would change his bills, because whatever the courts wanted came out of the judiciary. And one time we were waiting on the chairman to get there, and a new legislator from Lake County, a Democrat, he just got out of law school and this and that. And I was talking to him, I was battering back and forth. Somehow the Constitution came up. I said, "What's the Seventh Amendment to the United States Constitution?" He didn't know. And I said, what it says is that in all cases of law at the common law, which means non-criminal, the common law, in all cases of common law, the amount in question is $20 or more. The right to trial by jury shall prevail. He said, "That darn the Constitution." He just got out of law school. I said, "I'll bet you $10 in it." He said, "Okay." So I sent the girl that was our clerk back to the legislative council to get the Constitution. He paid me.
I bet he did.
He got to be a judge up in Lake County. Then he went to prison for corruption.
Goodness.
Now this is what goes on. Dumping a box of rocks.
So why do people get, in your opinion, involved in politics when they're not aware of how it works or
The thing is, position in society. Look how many attorneys you got over making the law that they want to adjudicate. It's dangerous. And I was wondering, Gordon Harper was an attorney. He was a conservative attorney. Good.
Yeah. Interesting.
They didn't like him too well either. But we made it.
Yeah. Okay. I know that both groups, there's a Republican caucus and the Democratic caucus and other various caucuses too. But did you have a sense then, because of that and other things, of how people would vote prior to actually voting?
Kind of, because usually the Republican caucus, you take a straw vote, see how it's going to fly.
Yeah. Okay.
Or if you're going to oppose it, why?
Talk it through beforehand.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, during your tenure then, what roles did party leadership play?
What was the party leadership role?
Yeah, like how much power, influence did they have?
Well, the Marion County tried to have a lot because they had the most. Of course, they had the money was there too. But
did that cause tension between other parts of the state?
yeah, it caused some friction, especially in the country areas about Marion County, and but not not major, but it was that, like I said, they were going to have their speaker. They thought they already had one, but they knew they were going to get a new one. But so party politics played a lot. But again, there was a little bit of concern about Indianapolis because it was the capital city and it's the most people and the most money. Coming out of here.
Did you feel like your background on maybe lobbying, but also specifically with the police, influenced the type of legislation that you put forth?
Oh, of course.
Just because that's what you know, or
well, that or someone had to do it. Like when they were trying to change the pension because they didn't want to pay out all that money and they wanted to change it for the people. Well, you don't do something that's already been promised. You had to guard on that all the time. I'd stop that stuff. From making those kind of things.
Sure.
But change the ages or jurisdiction and those things. Yeah, it did, but mostly I was concerned with right and wrong with what the Constitution says.
So that was your primary concern, and then the others were.
I think so.
Yeah. Okay. How? I'm not sure. Like I would have to think about the time frame there. But how did your legislative service affect your family life? Were your kids out of the house at that point, or were they still?
No, they were still home somewhere.
They're still home. Did it affect your family at all?
Not really. No.
Okay. Okay. What does the public not know about how the IGA operates? Are there things that happen that we're just not aware of? Not necessarily bad or good, but just we don't.
IGA.
The General Assembly.
Oh, General Assembly. Well, they don't know. The public has no idea.
Why don't we know?
How are they going to learn? Unless you go out there and hang out, but hanging out. There's been a lot of people do for some time, and you get to talk to their legislators and all that, but they still have no idea what's going on internally.
Do we need to know that, or is it just the process is mystified?
Well, it's not mystifying, it's just that most people don't care, I think.
And is that a problem, or does it matter?
It's a problem.
Okay.
Because the government's not to control the people to control the government. It's a problem.
And so if you don't know, you can't control. If you don't know, you can't help control.
Right. And you can't stop this from happening. Yeah, most people have no idea how their government works. In fact, most people in government don't know how their government works. Unfortunately, I think.
Yeah.
I found a lot. And I'm no genius. I mean, I can read.
Okay. What were the most controversial legislative issues during your time in the Assembly?
Well, some of them were on paying for public services that they shouldn't. That and government control over land and businesses. And budget. The waste of highway budgets and all that. It's just that most people don't know what's going on, unfortunately, and they don't take the time. Well, Look what goes on now. Most people are playing with their phones. Where's that information come from? Google. Who controls that? Google. Or whatever.
Yeah.
Most people have no idea that the Seventh Amendment still prevails to the Constitution of the United States.
So just a lack of understanding about how things work.
And it's not taught in schools. It's not at all. Now, I went through a time which you still had some teachers that really were concerned about the students' well-being and their knowledge about what their government was supposed to be. I don't think there's hardly any of that anymore.
I know that you had, and I don't know all the specifics, I'd have to look back in here, but I know that you pushed for certain curriculum in schools too. Do you remember some of that?
Well, because what I do is because when I went to school, grade school, they said a prayer in the morning, open the school. Not a Catholic prayer or a Baptist prayer, just a prayer. And the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. And now when some disaster happens, they have grief counselors from public school. Who do they pray to? For their grief. So I had that. More should be allowed during public school.
In schools, okay. Or question. So mostly for you, it was about budget issues and government overreach and things like that. That were the controversial issues.
Right.
Okay. What legislation did you work hardest on? What was most important to you?
Probably controlling the size of government and the expenditures, the taxation. Because that was a constant battle.
Well, you wanted to abolish the income tax, right?
Federal
income tax. Okay.
See that?
So
that was forbidden by the Constitution. They changed the Constitution.
Okay.
See, yeah. It was against the American Constitution to impose an individual tax on the people. The colonies that created the federal government were to pay a tax to have that protection from the federal government. Other than that, it was left to the states and the people themselves. And nobody teaches that at all. If the state of Indiana wants to ban handguns, try it. I mean, of course, the federal amendment says you can't. But just to rely on the way it's supposed to be. We didn't have all these agencies. There's so many you can't count them anymore. I don't know. It's a losing battle.
It's a what?
Losing battle again. There's so many entrenched. And the minds of the people have been warped because it's not taught in schools or the universities. You know, I use a textbook in one of my classes. It cost $3 at the college over. It was called The Law. It was written by a Frenchman, Frederick Bastiat, in 1848.
Wow.
Who saw it was the communist revolution then. That was the second one. The first one was the French Revolution. The second was the Revolution of 1840 and the communist law. And Bastiat was correct. But everything he said in that book was exactly what was done in our Constitution. And it was only 70-some pages. It cost $3 to college. Didn't like that at all, but they had a stock in.
Yeah.
But it's a great book.
Huh.
It's 78 pages of real wisdom. And he's not talking about a Christian. He says God created. He says that.
Yeah.
But it is, God don't make this rule, this and that. God created heaven.
Yeah.
And he talked about usurpful taxation as legal plunder, legalized plunder. And it is. Taking money from people without their knowledge or their will to give it up.
Well, we've talked about this a little bit throughout the interview so far, but when did you actually become involved then in the John Birch Society?
1964, Goldwater.
No, what?
1964, the Goldwater campaign.
Oh, the Goldwater campaign, sorry. Okay. That's what...
Yeah. I knew there was something wrong. And I knew there was a lot going on wrong, and I knew he was saying the right things.
Mm-hmm.
And he was being opposed so bad.
Mm-hmm. And that is the election year of Goldwater and Johnson, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, did you join a local chapter, or how did you even come to find out about the organization?
Well, there I was a policeman. 1967. Mm-hmm. And I had friends on the police department who were conservatives too. Went to school, high school. And so one day, Bill Schneider, who was on City Council of Indianapolis, he still owns Mr. Ice Company up on the north side.
Okay, so that name sounds familiar.
Well, his son was in the state senate.
Okay, maybe that's fine.
Bill Johnson and Jerry Shine. Jerry Shine worked for Shorey Brothers for sure. They came to police headquarters trying to recruit, to get some policemen to get active in the John Birch Society. And my buddy that I went to high school with was the desk sergeant that day. And Bill Schneider convinced him to come to a meeting of the John Birch Society, a presentation of what we're all about. And I said, He said, well, I've got a friend that probably you want to. So they sent in written invitations. It was held in World War Memorial. And the guy that gave the program was Gilbert Forbes, who was a broadcaster for a radio station, WRE. He was a John Birch Society volunteer.
Okay.
And he gave the presentation to Robert Welch. He gave it in Indianapolis. The John Birch Society was founded in Indianapolis on the north side. In a house that Mrs. Dice had the house. It was founded. He had 8 businessmen that come together to meet with John Birch. Well, they sat there, and I went to the presentation. What the presentation was, narrated by Gilbert Forbes, who I knew his voice from the radio, and respected that.
Yeah.
And here he is, and he gave the film made by Phil, which was the introduction to that initial group on film. Well, I checked it out, and I read what he wrote, and I decided that he was correct, and I joined. And Bill Schneider was on the council then, and it just grew and grew. But see, when I don't know, you know Notre Dame, the law school. Dean Mannion, Clarence Mannion was dean of the law school. He was the original member of the John Birch Society.
Really?
His son, Dan Mannion, was in the Senate when I was in the House. He's now a federal judge up in Chicago.
Okay.
Dan. But I was friends with Dean Mannion. The second number 2 man in the FBI, Dan Smoot, out of Texas, retired. He's a member of the John Birch Society, original member. The guy that started Cervell Corporation in Evansville, Indiana, made all the washers and dryers there. He was the original member of the John Birch Society.
Wow.
Robert Welch was he was the Welch Candy Company, he was a millionaire. And he gave and gave and gave. His great-grandfather immigrated to the United States from Wales. His name was Miles Welch. I come from good stock.
Yeah. Wow.
But anyway, the more he wrote, the more I learned about it. And the story of China is, you have no idea. The murder. So I had a friend who was a lieutenant colonel from France, but he was an American citizen. He was in the United States Army, but he was originally born in France. He was in Vietnam when they sold it out. He was a member of the John Birch Society.
Wow.
Rene DeForno was his name. He was a businessman in Indianapolis. So anyway, a lot of people.
Yeah.
A lot of influential people, but not dumb people. Well read. So,
Well,
read the life of John Birch sometime.
Yeah. I was reading a little bit on the website, just looking more into it.
Don't the website. Get the book.
The book.
Who put it on the website?
No, the John Birch.
Oh, did it? Okay,
the John
we'll do
Birch
that.
Society.
Read the life of John. It's not long. He was a genius, a kid. He saved the pilot.
Interesting. Okay. What was your proudest moment as a legislator?
Probably introducing Bob Dilley. I don't know, we asked some good things happen at times. I do no special particular time.
Particular one. Okay. I can look this up too, but what committees did you serve on that you recall?
I was on Judiciary. I was on Natural Resources for a while. What the hell else was there? I don't know.
You said you were chair of, or were you on
Appointments and Claims. There was no committee.
Okay.
But it was listed as a committee. I was listed on, I had a business card that said Appointment of Claims Chairman. But I was the only member. I had an office up above the House chamber.
Okay.
On the next floor up on the north side. Yeah. And I had a secretary.
Yeah.
And who had worked in the Senate. She's still friends. She lives down. Her husband's lost it with that. But I had control over all the employees.
Wow.
And the state Republican chairman had to clear through me. And I loved it.
I bet you did. I bet you did. That's funny.
Let me turn it off.
Tell me about the biggest hurdle you had to overcome in office. Was there anything you had to fight really hard for?
Just the Republican committee. Yeah, they always had somebody coming against me.
Yeah. Was it because you didn't necessarily share all the same values as them or ideas, or was it because you wouldn't fall in line?
I wouldn't fall in line. The Republicans supposedly shared the same values that I did. In the real world, I didn't. But because they were phonies. They were living off the taxpayers. And I didn't even know you got a daily allowance when I got elected.
Yeah.
What was this check for?
Yeah.
I don't believe political office should be careers. And I may be old-fashioned, but I am old-fashioned. You're meant to serve. You're elected to serve. And you should make a career, a pension for doing what you're supposed to do. I didn't take any. I didn't get it.
Did you, I've heard lots of different politicians say that, over the years, you're not supposed to serve. Did you have a time frame? What does that look like for you?
No, it wasn't a time frame. I was young, sort of young. I was in my 40s, I guess.
Yeah.
And
couple terms? I mean, is that?
Well, I just thought, my time has come. We need a sheriff here that's going to do something. I thought, well, we got a chance to do that. And of course, I was eliminated quickly.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was time to do something else. Like Woody Burton, he's been to Earth 40 years. We're damn close.
Yeah.
What'd he ever do? Nothing. Now Dan was active. Of course, he was active everywhere. But he had a pretty wife. But he got to Washington, and Schultz was Secretary of State then. And Dan would call me. He said, "That's no way." He said, "What?" I said, "Dan, you're over there. I'm here." When Dan ran for Congress, the Republicans didn't want him either. He was the county chairman in Beulah. And so they ran, what's that little guy's name? he became up west of the hospital. But anyway, they were going to run him. He was a party hack. And so I was one of Dan's first contributors. So I was going to give him $100 to go run. And so he beat the party and got in. And then, of course, the guy that, I can't remember his name, his wife committed suicide, more a bunch. But he was part of a party hack. Turn it off.
Yeah.
Be careful.
Yeah, well, so I was just going to ask about, what do you remember about is it Karitzis? Tony Karitzis?
Karitzis, yeah.
Karitzis case. Were you in the police department at the time?
I was either training commander or else running the planning and research. My office overlooked the north up there where it took place.
Okay.
The next block.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you remember that happening?
Yeah. I was I was there listening to the police radio,
Wow.
and I could see what was going on.
Yeah. Well, legislation came out of that later too, I think.
Yeah. I don't remember what it was. I had nothing to do with the
Yeah.
legislation.
Okay. That's a crazy story, and
Well, he was crazy, and they put up with too much.
Yeah.
They should
yeah.
because they fell down once, and the guy's shotgun didn't go off anyway.
Yeah.
Well, they should have taken the shooter out. But everybody was overcautious.
Right. Right.
And the guy who was chief of police was a friend of mine. In fact, he tried to make me chief of detectives, but the mayor wouldn't let him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been around. Yeah, Gallagher, we knew Gallagher was going to be chief of police politically. He came out of the West Side Social Club. So Gallagher's not a policeman, really. He ran a computer system for the police department. He'd been out on a car, but
Yeah.
he's running the computer, and I'm running the crime laboratory and what the hell else at that time. We're down there. Oh, I had lie detectors and blood search, all the evidence. And we're down there late one night, and he said, I want to see a minute. I said, okay. And he said, I'm going to be chief of police. I said, that's what I hear. He said, will you be my chief of detectives? I said, yeah, but you can't do it. He said, yeah, they promised me I can appoint my deputy chiefs. I said, Gene, they're not going to let you do that, especially me. I'm an enemy of the mayor. He said, yeah, they'll let me do it.
And that's Hudnut at the time?
It was Hudnut, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So I said, this is getting around, it's time to change offices in December. And usually what I did was take the kids to Florida in the summertime, or the winter, in Florida. I said, I'm going to Florida. I said, call me if you want to. I said, I'm not staying around because it's not going to happen. He called me in Florida. He said, I can't do it. I said, I'll do that.
Yeah.
But I had another assistant chief of police join the job purchasing. And his wife, she was a policewoman. Yeah, so I got along with everybody on the police department. Politically, I didn't.
Yeah.
Did you put me under? Do you want me to hug Richard Lugar?
No, I didn't get that on there.
Well, his wife got arrested. She got arrested for drunk driving over Washington D.C. If I was married to him, I'd drink too.
I'll let that one sit.
Yeah.
What?
But I know. I was in charge of intelligence. Is it on?
It is. Do you want me to pause it?
Turned off. When he was. Oh, by the way, my favorite Chinese friend in Annapolis, who's retired from Lowe's right now, his grandfather was vice president under Chiang Kai-shek's cell as the president.
Wow.
I've got a medal he sent me.
That's fascinating.
I almost went there to teach.
Yeah.
I had a letter from the president of the police college.
Oh, That's neat. That would have been a neat opportunity. What, in your opinion, is the most important work of the Indiana General Assembly?
We'll try to control the budget. And the well-being of the people of Indiana. They worry about liquor bills and stuff like that, and panic, or banking. Why was the state of Indiana here, and what are you going to do for the people that you represent? That's protection of life, liberty, and property is my concern.
Okay. You addressed this a little bit earlier, but why did you decide to run then for the Marion County Sheriff position?
Well, I saw a need. There was a lot of corruption going on, and the sheriff's department didn't have enough people to send out to patrol. Like a lot of times at night, the whole quarter of the city would be protected by one deputy, outside the city limits, or maybe two for the whole county. They didn't have enough manpower, and really weren't doing much to do about it. And the sheriff makes a bunch of money by collecting property taxes that haven't been paid. And that was the main goal of those people who got elected, it seemed like, was the people that finally get, when they caught them and made them pay their taxes, the sheriff got, I think, 20, 30, 40% of exact overdue taxes. It was a plush job. And they weren't serving the community.
And so you wanted
Like when
someone
I was
to
on
do
the
it.
police car at Fountain Square, a lot of times there wasn't a sheriff on patrol. We'd have to take the runs. I arrested a guy playing softball out in the county because the sheriff didn't want to send.
So you felt like they weren't doing their job.
Huh?
You felt like they weren't doing
No,
their job.
they weren't covering what they were supposed to do, but the money was still flowing in.
Yeah. Okay.
I think they cut that down finally. They don't get all, but they made a fortune. Those guys went on. They still make a fortune.
But now you didn't end up winning. You didn't even.
But I didn't run.
You didn't make it in there.
Oh, because the handwriting was on the wall. Jim Kittle. He's
That's the Kittle story.
He's
Right.
pretty well. He was going to be my finance chair, the millionaire.
Right, and they strong-armed them.
And
Yeah.
they got him out of it. Druckel's house, they couldn't move him.
Jack, right?
Yeah,
Jack.
yeah. He said, "Go do what you want to do. They won't sue you."
Yeah. So when then did you leave the General Assembly?
82. The last.
Yeah, I think so. No, you just did not run again? Or?
I did not run again.
Okay.
No.
And why exactly is that?
Well, because they had already dumped me anyway, because they had to work on me against the sheriff's office, because there was somebody else running for the office anyway.
Okay.
But again, I didn't want to make a career out of that.
Right. So 2.5 terms was enough for you.
Well, it was actually 3 terms. I did
Yeah.
the sole. He never did get seated.
Oh, okay. Okay. How would you summarize your time as a state legislator?
I had a good time. Enjoyed it.
Do you feel like you made a difference?
Sometimes. I changed a lot of votes on a lot of things, I think. But I'm not sure. At the end result, I don't know how to look at the state budget now.
Yeah.
But
Did you feel?
I made a difference for a while.
Okay.
Oh, I know I did on the speaker.
Right. Getting daily in, right?
You talk about a bunch of sob sisters. Well, anyway, that's fun.
Okay.
I've had a fun life. I really have.
Well, what's your favorite story or anecdote during your time as a legislator?
Probably getting Julia Carson to vote for the Liberal voice vote.
Yeah. What was that? Why was that so amusing to you?
Because she was down and out, hardcore Democrat, all those programs and this and that. But I convinced her it was a good thing. The income tax was not in the Constitution originally, and it shouldn't be. It's been, misused and all that. And she went, yeah.
Sounds like you had a pretty good relationship with her.
I did. She had a ladies' store down where the old Claypool upstairs. That went there was some shopping centers and stuff. We have to put the bank on it. I used to see her down there.
Yeah. What lessons, if any, did you learn?
None.
None. Why not?
Well, I learned that one person can't do a whole lot, but I know that. But you can have influence. And, I already knew that. I don't know that I really learned a whole lot. I learned more about the government. It was worse than I thought.
So maybe not the positive part. Okay.
But some positive things did happen at times. Now,
Yeah.
the last session we were in, Dan Burton and Gordon Harper and I insisted on lowering the budget in the House caucus. And we got it lowered about 0.5%. And it passed.
Yeah.
This is the only time in the history that I know of that anybody lowered taxes in the state. But the next session, right back up.
Yeah.
But we did lower taxes. And we insisted, Gordon and I and Dan, that we come down.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I just have a few more questions here. How has the state of Indiana changed over the course of your lifetime?
Roads. Well, there are a lot more roads. I think there are more people. I'm not really sure. I think the state's lost people. Yeah, Indianapolis is growing. See, Indianapolis was the 12th largest city in the country. I don't know if it still is or not.
I don't know.
But we've lost population because of taxes, I think. Down, and a lot of people went to Florida. See, when my wife and I had property out in Florida because I hate cold weather. And I bought some land down there, and then I traded it in as weather land. But I had a big boat, and I kept it at Monroe for a while. I had a smaller boat down there when I was doing my doctorate.
Yeah, right.
And but I had a bigger boat, so I took a 9,000 pound boat up to Florida, and but we became tax registered voters in Florida because there was no income tax and no property tax on certain things. So taxes were a lot lower down there. But to be able to vote and to get the property tax, you had to be registered down there. And so for a while we were registered voters, just not too long, 4 years maybe.
Yeah.
But the state has changed. I don't know. It's not near as conservative as it was politically. And I don't know. The neighborhoods have all gone to pieces. The old neighborhoods. It's like I said, when I was a kid, you could walk anywhere you wanted to go. When I was at Tech High School, the Tech dance band, at Brookside Park, run by the Police Athletic League, had a dance every Friday night. Of course, there was no alcohol allowed or anything like that. You could walk to and from Brookside Park from where we lived, no problem. No, I wouldn't dare let my wife walk down the street over there, or my girlfriend, or anything. It's changed that so much that property and life seems to have a lot less meaning to me. I don't know. And I fault government and the education system. Like I had prayer in school. What's wrong with that? God, learning about God, man, do you think man created all this? There has to be a higher power. And to ignore that and ignore the rules of mankind, which is thou shalt not murder and all that, it's all gone. Look what's just the other night we're in California. I got a friend that lives in Thousand Oaks. In fact, he's a member of the John Birch Society. Wrote one of the best books ever on the Federal Reserve. Ed Griffin's his name.
What was his name?
Ed Griffin.
Oh, okay.
That's another long story.
Okay.
He won the debate honors at the University of Michigan when he was in college, and he is the best writer around.
How has the Indiana General Assembly changed?
I'm not sure. I really don't know. It looks to me like a whole lot of the same. How do these people stay in office all these years? Well, what they do is send those daily newsletters out, and that's it. And I get them here. Turned off.
Okay.
Pence.
I'm interested to hear what you have to say to this. What, if any, enduring qualities do Hoosiers have or hold dear? Do you think there's anything that kind of makes a Hoosier?
Well, I think so. If they know the history a little bit, actually, again, this is the center of the United States, and it's the trade and the music and automobile center for a long time. And they should be proud of it, and I'd like to see the heritage relearned and regained. I really would. We published a book to help that, and I'll show it to you before you leave.
Okay.
But we sent a free one to every college, junior college in the state.
And by we, you mean John Birch Society?
No, the Hoosier Auto Show. I ran,
the auto show.
it. And I mortgaged this place with $50,000 to publish that book. We got it back. We sold the book.
That's good.
But no, it's the heritage. Indiana's important.
Yeah. It is important.
And it was like where you are right now, in 1861, I think it was, this township voted if the southern states pulled out of the federal, they did too. And we never came back. This is Sugar Creek Township in Shelby County. They voted.
I did not know that.
Yep. I got the newspaper for it.
Yeah. Interesting.
But anyway, no, there's a lot of history, a lot of heritage. Gatling, Richard Gatling, it was a terrible thing, but it made a machine gun. Richard Gatling lived in downtown Annapolis. Right there in Delaware, and I think Michigan. It was just an amazing thing. Ed Whitcomb, who was governor, sailed the ocean at 90-some years old by himself.
I know. It's unbelievable.
And people before him. It's just amazing people we've had here. And again, due to the location and due to the construction of the railroads later on, the highways and all that, we're still the crossroads of America.
Yeah.
And I was kind of proud of that.
Well, one thing I must have skipped over at some point here. I didn't ask what you did after you left the General Assembly. What have you done
Well,
since then?
at that time, I was the treasurer for the Hoosier Auto Show, which at that point in time was probably the third largest antique car show and vendors meet in the country. I had a master key at Indianapolis Sports Speedway for 20 years. We started the show there.
Yeah.
And ran it there for 20 years,
Wow.
21 years. And after Tony Hallman died, I had a little problem with the one who just passed on, his daughter, Mary Hallman. But that's another whole story. You don't have time for that. Well, she's a bitch, or was. But anyway,
Okay.
I moved it to the Marion County Fairground. Well,
Okay.
we're getting to a place where it was a volunteer thing. And I'd been the treasurer since it started in 67. And it got to the place where I was running it, and treasurer, one guy was taking care of the vendor spaces and other show cars, and it was getting, your living room was cluttered with stuff. So they asked me to take it over and run it. I said, "You're retired." And, I didn't want to leave town to teach. I should have. No, I shouldn't have either, because I would have had opportunities. And so I said, "Okay, you pay me what I make teaching a little bit. Give me an office and this and that, an accountant and a secretary, and I'll run it." So I took it over as the executive director. So I ran that for the next 20 years.
Okay. And that was the Hoosier Auto
Show and Swap Meet. And when I first took the office over, I went in the Secretariat building because I was being the lobbyist for the crime victims. Remember the woman that got shot out there in the West, probably who killed her son, and they thought they killed her, blew her wig off, shotgun, drugs. Well, they had started an organization, crime victims. So I was their lobbyist, free. So I had need to have an office downtown. So I moved to Hoosier Auto Show office in the Secretariat. Well, then I found out the rent kept going up, and I looked at the test building across there. I get parking inside for the office. So I moved the office over there. I'm right on the circle.
Yeah.
And so I joined the Columbia Club then too, because I was down to State House and downtown.
Sure.
And so I ran there for a while, but the rent got so heavy down there.
Yeah.
That I moved the office to my house.
Now, were you still in Indianapolis at that point? Okay.
And ran it for a while there until we moved, and I got it moved. And then when we built that building, I put the upstairs is a living quarters, but it was an office.
Okay.
And
That's above a garage
yeah,
there.
that's everything's up there.
Yeah.
And, in fact, that whole front wall on the inside is a world map. The wallpaper's mapped.
That's neat. It's a big building, big space.
Yeah.
So then did you retire from
Yeah, I
that
retired from that. I got to the place where the Marion County Fairgrounds kept raising the rent fee and the services kept going down. I said, let's chuck it.
Okay.
And so we shut down the show, but a guy in Franklin took over our dates. And we still got the corporation because we're still selling the book. But they took the dates over and running, so we just dissolved what we were doing. But we're still incorporated.
Yeah. So
I don't do anything now but wonder when I get to see my wife again.
Yeah. Now, when did you were going to go to Florida in there, or you just had the property and we're going to go?
Well, we had after we're out here, but we were down there 15 years. I had the boat.
So did you just like snowbird down there?
Well, I did.
Yeah.
We went, and then my secretary would come out here and run the Hoosier Auto Show business, which is in the wintertime wasn't much.
Yeah.
But telephone in the mail, and I'd call her every day. And she's also a member of the John Burke Society, sort of. But we had a hurricane down there while we were back up here, and it took the boat docks out. Didn't take the boat. I had the boat back. Took the boat docks down. I had a huge tree that was. I'd built a 10 by 20 screen and porch there. The tree was right. Took the tree over, went the other way. I got to the place. What am I doing with two properties? And maintaining 3 roofs, 4 or 5 water heaters. So I sold it.
Yeah. So then you've been back up here.
Came back here.
Permanently.
And I hate it in the wintertime, but I still love the location.
Yeah. It's a nice location out here.
And but my wife died about 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago, and it was lonely.
Yeah, I bet that's hard. Some of your kids are still up here, close.
Yeah, the oldest boy is in Colorado.
Yeah.
He runs factories, but he'll stay there because he's got grandchildren and stuff out there.
Sure.
They're almost in Utah, Grand Junction. And number 3 son, the doctor, may come back here.
Right. Just kind of depends.
But he'll operate out of my airplane
Yeah.
to all these different places
Yeah.
and still make a lot of money. So we own 112 acres in northern Arizona.
Wow.
He does, it's in my name, but at the time, I don't own it, but he does. But we got 112 acres there. Right, just north of Tucson, northeast of Tucson. And so he's here. My oldest boy is still here. I may have to take him in, as crippled up as he is. I don't know, but he's 60 now. The other, and my sister still lives. She lives over there, and she's physically good.
Yeah. So.
She's a widow. She got money. She married money. She's got a paid-for home, brand new,
Wow.
and everything she needs.
Well, is there anything that we haven't covered? Anything that you want to talk about that we didn't get to or I didn't ask?
I'll call you. I got your phone number.
You do, and I'm happy to continue the conversation. So, well, I think, you answered all the questions that I had, and it was...
But I had a good time down there. I really did. And
Yeah.
even though I was the opposing force at times, it was okay.
Yeah.
And the guys that run the housing projects used to come and see me, and stuff like that. I'd laugh at them,
Yeah.
but I was cordial. I had along.
Well, like I said, I think that's all of the questions I had.
Well,
are you okay with signing the sheet there?
I don't care.
Let's see, where did I? Here's one of them, and I gave you, here's that one, and you can keep a copy for your records.
Okay.
Wait, that's the different, there we go. Keep one for yourself, and then one here.
Do I need to sign this too?
Yep, I'll give him a pen here, and I'll go ahead and turn this off while we're doing that then.